where and when were you born?
I was born in December '83 in Oamaru.
And how long did you stay there?
Till I left home at 18. I lived with my dad for a while, and Mum moved up here to the Bay of Islands, and I stayed down there with my dad and my stepmum.
And when you were 18, where did you then go?
I went to Otago University.
What did you study?
English. BA bum. Just did a 3-year English degree. I really don't know what the purpose of having a degree in English is. It has served me zero purpose whatsoever at this point.
And what did you do after university?
I wanted to do a creative writing course, so I decided to move to Wellington to do a creative writing course, but I didn't get accepted into the course. My family thought that maybe I should do a teaching diploma. Really didn't want to, but we paid for it, so did a graduate teaching diploma, and I went and worked for a couple of years as a teacher aide and doing relief teaching, and really didn't enjoy that very much. But I have the qualification for what little it means.
So, talking of teaching of children, what sort of child were you?
What sort of child was I? A really talkative one that wouldn't shut up. Didn't really get along with people my own age very much. Spent all my lunchtimes at school in the library reading books because I didn't really get along with other children very well, but I spent a lot of time with my grandparents because we lived with them, and they would take us on holidays in the camper van, and I would, when I was hanging out with adults, I would just yap away like you couldn't shut me up, and I'm sure it was horribly annoying. And I was completely off in my own little world all the time. I think that's probably about me as a kid.
What sort of interest did you have as a child?
Art. My favourite subject at school was always drawing and painting and writing stories and making stories up, and like I said, I was always off in my own little world imagining all sorts of weird stuff. I really don't know how I managed to spend 10 years of childhood just fiddling around doing all sorts of what do kids fill their childhood up with? Bullshit, really.
And how was your health growing up?
I had a lot of tonsillitis, tonsillitis over and over again. I was taken out of school quite a lot with tonsillitis, but other than that, I was perfectly healthy. I was a bit on the skinny side. I didn't do any sports, didn't like sports at all. I didn't get picked for the teams because I was too scrawny and I couldn't run. But other than being unfit, that was in pretty good health.
And how's your fitness now? Do you do any exercise?
I do pole dancing, but because I've been sick, I haven't really been doing anything for the last 3 months since the start of the year. From sort of the age of 28 to 32, with pole dancing being the fittest I ever have been in my life. I even got abs, which was quite exciting, and lost some weight and got really trim and stuff, which was nice, and had a level of fitness that I hadn't really ever had even as a kid, so that was nice, but it's gone now. It's gone.
And that was all prior to you getting sick?
Yeah.
So prior to that, what was your lifestyle like? Do you eat well?
I am a bit addicted to sugar, and I've got a sweet tooth, and I can't help myself when it comes to baked goods and sweet treats. But I've never really been overweight or anything. I've never been unhealthily fat, but I am an indoors sort of person, really. I like doing art and creative stuff and sewing and reading and watching movies, and a lot of my friends would go snowboarding and hiking, and not really my thing. So it's not really in my nature to get fit. Before I was a dancer, I ran my own shop for about 6 years, so my life was pretty much for 6 years just involved doing a lot of shopping to buy stock for the shop, and my other pretty much all-time favourite thing to do is shopping, and it sounds shallow and terrible, but I just I really relaxes me to just go wandering around and looking through shops, and that's why I did the whole vintage clothing store, because then I could spend hours going to vintage clothing stores and buying the stock, and it was part of my job to spend hours trawling through op shops, and it was a dream job, really.
So before you got sick, how would you classify yourself? As a fashion designer, as a shopkeeper, as a dancer?
Dressmaker was, if people ask, I'd usually say dressmaker. Vintage clothing trader is a bit of a mouthful and a bit, but I can see myself potentially doing that again one day. I didn't do it very well. I never made a lot of money or made profit, but I think if I did it again, I'd probably do it a bit smarter and think a bit more about the profit margins, and potentially save up and put a lot more money in the first place to maybe get, because my store was very out of the way, so I didn't get a lot of foot traffic. It was on Cuba Street, but at the very far end, so I would do it again a lot differently than I have done. Eventually I realised the overheads, even though the overheads were low, I wasn't making enough money for the shop to be worthwhile, so I spent a year and a half really just doing the dressmaking from home, and made just as much money doing that. So,
So what were you doing in the 6 months prior to your diagnosis?
Planning to go overseas, actually. My boyfriend and I he'd always wanted to live in London, and I decided I'd never been overseas before, so I thought I'll give that a go. We just got all the way to the opposite side of the world, and I thought that the dressmaking and the fashion design might be better somewhere bigger, so I thought we'd give that a go. We've been selling everything we owned. I was selling off all my old stock, and just trying to get rid of everything so that I would have just a suitcase or two to go to London, and make a few wedding dresses and dancing as well. So yeah, I've worked for the last 4 years as a stripper, which has been probably the best job I've ever had in my life. I love it, and you're very welcome to ask about that. So.
Why was it the best job you've ever had?
Flexible hours. I was working night shifts, which was obviously a bit strenuous, but I met a lot of really interesting people. I got to spend all my evenings kind of partying and acting like a 22-year-old. They all thought I was 22, which was fantastic. I got to learn a little bit about being an exhibitionist and making a bit of a spectacle of myself, and dress up and put sparkly makeup on, and I got to focus on myself and looking beautiful and feeling beautiful and getting complimented non-stop all night long. I got to go to Australia for a month to work over there, and the girls that I worked with were just wonderful, wonderful people too. I met girls from all around the world, from every continent, and so I've got friends all over the world now, and they're just really fun, wild, crazy, interesting people. And the customers were really lovely too. I've got some of the men that I've met through working, I'm still friends with now. They're really lovely people. People have got a lot of negative assumptions that they would make about working in that industry, but it's not really what people think.
How did you get into it?
My friend was dancing there, and I had a breakup after 6 years, and a bit explosive, and she said, "Oh, just come and try this out, you'll probably enjoy it." And I'm like, "Oh, you reckon?" And I just turned up and gave it a go, and never stopped. The money wasn't too bad either. I put aside a bit of money over the last few years, which is nice.
You can't tell me that you were a shy girl before.
Oh, I was. Well, I was a shy child. Like I said, I didn't get along well with people my own age, but I started coming out of my shell when I went to university. When I went to university, I'd never even been to a party or drunk alcohol or anything like that, and I made this big new group of friends and started becoming a lot more social and a bit of a party animal, and sort of had 6 years, like I said, in a relationship that wasn't so great, so I kind of was just working, watching movies with my boyfriend. That's pretty much all I did for 6 years. And becoming a stripper helped me feel like young again and partying all the time, and it's something that's quite, I really do like to part of the reason I don't want to have kids is because I want to keep on being able to go out for big nights in the town occasionally, and it makes me feel young. And I'm dating a man 6 years younger than me as well. That also keeps me young.
So do you plan to get back to it?
Yeah, I hope so. It depends on what these are going to look like. If I'm all scarred up, and I don't know, it might be bigger. I would like to spend a few more years dancing, because it's something you can't do when you're old, but you can only do. I am 32. I know some girls who have danced until they're 40, but it depends how I look, really.
Yep,
there's no point if they're not going to throw money at you.
Right.
Get her off the stage.
So tell me about the cancer. How are you diagnosed?
I found, actually, when I was in Australia dancing over there, I found a lump, and I didn't really think it would. There's a lump in my boob. It's like my age. It's probably not cancer. It's probably just like a cyst or something like that. But when I got back to New Zealand, I went to the doctor and had it checked out. Everyone was very blasé. They're like, "Oh, it's probably nothing, but we'll get you an ultrasound." So I had an ultrasound, and my GP actually didn't follow through with the ultrasound results and didn't send them through to the hospital for about a month. And I had to chase them up about that, and they're like, "Oh, sorry about that, we'll get onto it." So they were sending me for a fine needle aspiration, is where they put three. The ultrasound found a second lump, which turned out to be nothing, but they put 3 needles in here and 3 needles in here, just with no anaesthetic, very fine needles to take cell samples, and then they rushed me in for. They said the results from the fine needle aspiration were, yes, it is cancer, but now we need to know the details of that. We need a core sample. So I found out mid-January, after the fine needle aspiration, that it was. She was very grim about it. She was like, "This is very serious." And I was like, "Oh shit!" And we were right ready to like pack up and leave. My boyfriend had all his suitcases packed and everything. So everything went on hold for a while I got rushed in for the next day to have a biopsy done, which I've still got some scars from. They actually have to make a small incision and put a very large needle in that hooks in and tears out a chunk of. My boyfriend said he was watching and he could see it looked like they were pulling out a piece of spaghetti. So that's what comes out, and they took that away for samples, and I have grade 3 invasive ductal carcinoma. So it's in the milk ducts of the breast, and grade 3 means that it was very large. It was I think 4 to 5 centimetres. It had grown since I first found it when it was the size of a pea. In 3 months it grew. So it was very aggressive and fast growing. But the results were a little bit mixed. It came back with two separate results. One sample said one thing and one sample said the other. So they reckoned that the tumour potentially had 2 parts to it. One was very aggressive and one wasn't. But they actually say that the aggressive ones are more likely to respond rapidly to treatment, and it has. It's reduced after chemotherapy. I've had about 2 months of chemotherapy, and it's reduced it over 80%. I can't even find the tumour anymore. There's no lump there whatsoever. It's a little bit of sort of thick tissue, and so when you get breast cancer, you either have surgery straight away and then chemotherapy, or you have neoadjuvant chemotherapy, which reduces the tumour size. So mine was so large that if they did a surgery on it, they would just have to chop off the whole breast, the nipple, the lot, just all gone, to be able to remove it. But they decided, because I was young, they wanted to be able to potentially spare the breast. They've decided to do neoadjuvant, which is chemotherapy first, and then I've got another 12 weeks of weekly chemotherapy coming up, and then surgery, and then radiotherapy. So it's a long year, a very long year. But the worst part, what I've already had, that's over now, and that was apparently the nastiest chemotherapy, and it was the worst drugs with the nastiest effects, and that's over.
So the prognosis is.
You don't very rarely actually die of chemotherapy these days. I mean, you don't. I mean, no. What I'm saying, you don't die of breast cancer these days. It's one of the most easily treatable. Even in the worst case scenario, people often survive it. They may survive with both breasts completely gone, but it's not in any sense of the word terminal. It's the difficult part at the moment is I don't know until I have my surgery whether it's spread into my lymph nodes or not. So if it has, the chemotherapy is likely taking it right back to nothing again. So I have to wait until my surgery to find out. And then they give me radiotherapy as well, and then they start with the testing process all over again and just check to see if it's gone. Prognosis in terms of my boobs, worst case scenario I lose one, because they'll do a lumpectomy first and remove the lump, and they check the margins to see if the cancer's spread to the outside cells, and if it has, they go in again and remove more, potentially the whole breast. And they've also got to cut in here the armpit and remove all the lymph nodes and check them out. Apparently the lymph node surgery is actually the most painful part of it, and you can't drain the fluids from your arm anymore, and your arm gets very swollen. So yeah, really not looking forward to that. But
so when's the lumpectomy planned for?
There's no date scheduled yet. I've got an appointment when I get back from Keri Keri to go and talk to the surgeon again, and I imagine from that I'll probably know when my surgery will be after the 12 weeks of weekly chemo.
So what's your overall outlook? I mean, you're in a beautiful part of the world.
I always say, like, if people ask me, I'm like, mentally I'm fine. It's like, obviously some days when I've had chemo I feel like crap for about a week after chemo. But the next round of drugs that I'm going on to don't have those side effects, so that's good. But yeah, I've had some really nasty days after chemo where all I want to do is lie in bed and feel nauseous, and I actually can't even watch a movie because I just don't even feel like watching a movie. Just feel like death warmed up. But when I'm fine, I'm fine. It doesn't affect my brain at all. I have had a couple of days where the chemo is. I actually couldn't sleep for a while. It was affecting my sleep, and then I got sleep deprived, and that really affected my mood quite a lot, because sleep deprivation will do that to you. But it felt like the worst PMS I've ever had.
Would the outcome have been any different if you go on to the doctor immediately in Australia, do you think?
Possibly not, because then I would have had to go and see a doctor in New Zealand anyway. I just would have been shuffled from doctor to doctor, and I would have had to pay a lot of money to go to a doctor in Australia probably. So it was only about 2 weeks from when I found it to maybe 2 or 3 weeks from when I found it when I went for my GP's visit. It was just that 1 month where they pissed around after the ultrasound, and also it was New Year's and Christmas. So it's really the wrong time of year to be trying to get a diagnosis of anything, because everyone's taking holidays. I went away for 2 weeks, and they actually called up and said, "Hey, we've got an appointment for you." And I was like, "Oh, I'm on holiday. Like, I'm not even in town. Like, I need one when I get back." So there was a month where their negligence was kind of a problem, but also I was away for 2 weeks visiting my family in the South Island, and yeah, I had all these holiday plans, and I was going to put them off. I'll come back and it'll be fine. But it was still caught early enough that they wouldn't, if it had gone any longer, that it might have been a problem, but it couldn't really have moved much faster. 3 months, that's a bit bad.
And when you have got rid of it all, are you still planning to go to London and carry on with life?
Maybe London, maybe Australia actually, because we're thinking that the climate's better there. The living costs are lower than London, but we'll still be able to have a really nice lifestyle over there, and it'll be a bit bigger and more interesting than Wellington. So.
Cool. Thank you very much.
No worries.